Yeah, thanks to everyone, Lee, Hemant, Neil, for this discussion. So this is regarding the contribution that we are doing, and there has been a concern regarding the few people doing this because of the credit system is attached to that. So one concern is that like few companies, because based on the credit, there's a marketplace ranking that happens of the companies. So few of the people from companies just doing the contribution for the sake of contribution, but not adding much value. So that has been called out by community multiple times. And certain action has been taken, like updating the documentation, reaching out people, those are doing so. And it looks like that the action that we have taken so far is not enough, because it has to be done more. So that educating people is one thing, but still there will be few new people coming, and then we'll always have this problem if we don't have a right way to solve it, right? So this is just a discussion, and then open for opinion that how to solve this problem. I have few suggestions that I'll talk. But first I'll like probably hand over to Lee for that. So if you have any suggestion, what can be done?
I've got some pretty strong opinions about it. I do think that sometimes what we call gaming is still a valuable contribution. So like a coding standards fix, I don't think it's fair to call gaming. There are a certain class of issues that provide a really good starting point for contribution, and if the first interaction that someone has with the community is that we say, you're only doing this for gaming, then what sort of impact does that have on their longer term contribution? But that said, there's a point where if you know how to do coding standards changes, and you've done a few, and you've got into the rhythm of creating a merge request and changing the issue status and working through the feedback from the maintainer and fixing any tests, and they've been committed, then we used to have something called the Drupal ladder, which was like different levels of contribution to work your way through so you mastered the skills. And I think at that point, you've probably worked out and mastered the first rung. And so at that point, it's time to leave those issues for the next first-time contributor. And I think there's a role for everyone in the community, particularly maintainers, around that, and it just takes a little bit longer. So when you get that issue for coding standards on your module, if you take some time and review it and have a look at the profile of the person, if they're a first-time contributor, you really need to be welcoming and you need to help them through that process. But equally so, if you have a look and they've got 50 credits for coding standards fixes, I think that's your chance to educate and say, okay, I've had a look at your profile and I realise that you already know how to do coding standards fixes. I appreciate this fix, I'm going to commit it. But in this case, I'm not going to grant any credit for it. I think and it's worth trying to point them towards the next level of the ladder. So that might be pointing out some other issues in that same module where you would like help. And if you're a module maintainer, there's definitely going to be more issues that you want help on. I think that's a part of the process that we have to start thinking about it. Is that the kind of thing you're talking about?
Yeah, I think the coding standard is fine if you are like starting, but still like people just keep doing that. Even the coding standard can be automated, so I think we should think through like how we can automate that for every patch or every merge request that we reach, so that no one has to actually pick the issue for the coding standard, right? I think this is something which can be automated, the coding standard thing, right? So we should be focusing more on that.
It can, but I also think that people, there are some mechanics of contribution that you need to get into before you can, move on to harder things. And coding standards does provide a way for people to start that, even though it can be automated. It's still a useful process, I think. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
We can give up one.
You can give it to me, and then I'll bring it around to myself.
I would also point out that coding standards that Lee is saying here is just an example of an easy to repeat, automatable type of contribution that people generate a lot of in the queues. I think the kind of gamification that we're primarily concerned about is the generation of a lot of what seem like low-hanging fruit fixes that are generated by a machine or by AI or submitted en masse that don't seem like a lot of thought of work were put into them, where the maintainer, the work that Lee described there as a maintainer is almost more work for the maintainer than we're thinking we're guessing maybe that it was for the user to create it. And so if one person has put a lot of time into making that their one first contribution, as a maintainer, I'm not concerned at all. I'm delighted that they've spent that much time learning how to contribute to Drupal. But if one person or one company is creating tens, hundreds of these same issues across multiple contributed projects or across multiple subsystems, different types of issues in core, then as a maintainer, I'm concerned. So it's not about the coding standards themselves. It's about the types of issues that have only a small amount of work appearing to go into them, where the amount of work required by the maintainer to commit it is actually large. And it's about how we can make it so that companies push their users toward investing their energy into contributions that move the project forward in a more significant way, and the balance between maintainer work and new contributors, the work that new contributors put their time into, is sort of fair, and that we don't teach people bad contribution patterns. If I can sort of reframe it away from the coding standards example specifically into just sort of like the problem that I hope we're trying to solve with this.
Yeah, I think to add on to top of it, like, so like when we first start contributing, right, we obviously ask everyone to like start contributing with easier issues, like coding standard kind of like fits a bill easily there. But it has to be a pattern, like maybe as a marketing of Drupal contributions, we can market it as like start slow, start easy, but move to more complex things as soon as you have get the hangs of it. Like move towards solving the more bigger problems. Like instead of doing coding standard, maybe learn about hook system, implement some hook related stuff, right? Then move towards more Symfony related system, or you are a front-end developer, move towards theming the issues like Claro or navigation system.
I can speak loud.
Okay, I've seen this. I'm kind of an outsider. I've been working with Drupal for a long time, but I'm part of a kind of maintainer in a module, helping out a friend, and this happened where a coding standard issue came up, and basically what angered the module maintainer, the main one, was that they didn't even ever test it. And this is a pretty simple module. Like maybe they should be kind of getting DDev going and actually like install the module and test it. You know, that's kind of what I seen, because I actually have seen these profiles where it's like all these code fixes, but if they actually like tested it, like, you know, just do some QA tests and add it to what the ticket that they're adding to the issue. I'd like to see that a little bit, or, you know, instead of just trying to get issue credits, like, I don't even know how many I have, probably like 4 or 5. I don't have a lot. So.
Yep.
There's nothing wrong with trying to get issue credits. My income comes from issue credits, so let's not like punish. I mean, that there's a reason the credit system exists. It's very important. Like it's how we can make, you know, take Drupal away from being something that is just sort of like a hobby project that runs on passion into a project that is sustainable and healthy for the people that build it. So I think the credit system is very important. I think that what we want to do is try to tweak the structural aspects of it and the education systems that we have around it so that credit is fairer, I guess. So that credit for doing, the credit is rewarded fairly, so that when you do something that's not healthy or helpful, we have easier ways of not crediting that or crediting it less. I guess I'd say that.
Yeah, and I think this issue is pointing out that it's a good system. Like there's a lot of value. There's a reason why people are doing this, why they're trying to get these credits. Idea that came up during this was maybe it comes down to the weight of which we give each one of these credits. Like each credit, when you get it, is equal to the other and the next and the next. Maybe there's a just.
Just want to clarify that.
Yeah.
So for organization ranking, they are weighted by the project usage. So if a module's used on 10 sites, that is ranked pretty low compared to something involved with Drupal core or Starshot or a larger module.
Right.
But for individuals, we're not ranking individuals, so that there's no ranking there.
Yeah. Yeah, but I was thinking maybe there's an opening for like a easy, intermediate, hard credit. So then when you look at an organization or a person's profile, hey, like this person did 1,000 or 100 easy commits and no intermediate, no hard. And then this person over here does a lot of hard commits, and I don't know.
Yeah, quantifying
Yeah,
software
yeah.
development is a hard
Yeah.
problem.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. But I think it's an idea. It's an idea.
I think it is a little unfortunate that we have to treat coding standard issues unfairly, because they could be used as a tool to for a beginner in a contribution to at least understand the process of creating a merge request. But it has to be properly tested. It has to cover a lot of things. So let's say it is a coding standard issue. It should arguably cover all of the coding standard issues in the module and not just a single class, or break that down into several coding standard issues. That's completely unfair. Most of the open source projects use good first-time contributor issue, and we have a novice tag for it. But I think what lacks is training. Once you use a novice issue, you get to understand how the issue system works, then you have to move on to the next level. That's something that maybe the junior developers who are starting to contribute can be. So it could be driven by training, and the organizations, the senior members, the technical leadership can do a better job in that.
Yeah,
So-
absolutely. Yes, absolutely, Ajit. And I think that is very important. Like when organization asks their people to contribute, to provide proper support to them as well. Like internally, what we have been doing is, like for some time back, around 2 to 3 years back, when Drupal 10 was in full swing, we were doing Drupal 10 porting support, and we had lots of junior folks coming in, and QD42 like hired lots of interns and trains them. So, and we saw it as a good opportunity to get a lot of people the taste of open source contribution, like how to get started with open source contributions. And it was like coupled with automation system as well, like automated patches were being created. And there was some, we can say guidelines, like to follow the testing of patches like this. But some juniors were very hesitant or feared, like, what if they write something, it won't go right way, and they kind of followed a similar template while answering those things. And it kind of being perceived as a, like, they're trying to game the system, but whereas they were trying to learn it from, right? And after that, what we learned from that incident was, like, it's not just about asking people to go in there and contribute there, but they need more better support. So from the last year, we started doing more focused contributions. And what we did was, like, we first streamlined all the documentation. Then we also added internal portal, which we call Drupal OS portal, internal use for QED42. We are looking to open source it as well. It is kind of a system to basically track the contribution of our own individual people, so that we can see and review, like, what kind of work they are doing. And then we give them proper guidelines as well, like, start with easier things, but once you have got the hang of it, do not stay on it. Specifically, like coding standard issues, or it could be anything simple. Once you have got the hang of it, move to more complex things. And we have a specific guideline as well, like to focus on, as an organization, to focus on some important areas. So we are like aiming to do contributions on Starshot and Drupal core, so that our team not only gets to do hard things, but they get to learn lots of new things as well. And that's why that's where their skills improve. And Laurel, and I think he has worked with some of our contributors as well. Like one of the contributors he worked with, he was an intern, and he learned a lot from him. So thank you. And contributors like him help the team grows and community grows.
If I could just quickly address a couple of the previous points of feedback about ranking sort of intermediate, easy, intermediate, hard difficulty. We have previously discussed tying credit weight to the issue priority, which is minor, normal, major, critical. The one difficulty with that is then that you get into like priority wars between the maintainer and the issue contributor about what the issue priority is, and like, is it minor, is it normal? And then you also, it also puts the onus on the maintainer to give the issue the correct priority, which again, we are more likely to be correct about for core, and then contrib, you'll get maintainers who will apply it and you get maintainers who won't. And so there's a possible path forward there, and about to just like mark the issue minor, to force it to be, okay, you gave my module a README MD that's formatted correctly. Yippee, it's a little better, thanks. Minor, you get 0.1 credits worth. So there's some path forward there. Regarding the sort of the reluctance around coding standards issue, I will say that on contribution day, we do lower our standards a lot because we want people to have a very positive first experience, even though we know they're gonna not write a good issue comment and they're gonna get everything wrong. So on contribution day, we have mentors at the table there with them, reminding them these are the things you need to do, handpicking very trivial issues, and even if they make mistakes, we still give them credit for the work that they did on the issue, because when it gets committed, because we have the mentors there who can sort of verify that they did all the steps, even if they forgot to document it and they did things wrong, and so on and so forth. So when we participate in an event like this, and at least there's someone there with them that can sort of vouch for the work that they did, we do sort of, even though they're working on an issue that normally wouldn't receive credit, or doing a task, or kind of writing their comments in such a way that normally we wouldn't give them credit for, we do. And so the more opportunities we have like that, where we have sort of a sort of group contribution opportunity where we can give someone credit for that, just that first 1 or 5 contributions that they make, to credit them. And that means that we need to have more sort of like group first-time contribution opportunities, either in person or virtually. The better I think it'll be. That's all. I was sort of holding that in for a long time, so I'm sorry that I didn't address what you said. It was holding that in, but that's all. Thank you. Now you have 2 mics.
Just talking some more about what Haman was saying. I think as maintainers, and there's a few maintainers in the room, I think it's worth putting a little bit of effort into the person. So in the case, I think what we're talking about, one of their interns showed up, and I think it was a very simple patch, and I guided them to get it right, but they kept coming back and they kept fixing the things. So as a maintainer, you can often tell the difference between someone who's genuine and someone who's just wants that credit and that's it. And generally, if you provide a review and it goes quiet, then it's probably in the second category. But in the case that we were talking about before, yeah, I mean, I kept providing reviews and the code kept getting better, and then we committed it, and then I said, thanks, and here's another issue if you're interested, and then we went over the next issue. And I think that kind of interaction as a maintainer, it makes your life easier in the long run. It's a bit of your time at the start, but it might end up saving you a lot of time, or it might be, the next major contributor to Drupal that, like Stephen Musgrave is the classic example, where he came along and had a few questions and everyone kept giving him time, and now I just did some statistics on the last 2 years of Drupal contribution for our presentation tomorrow, and he's had on average 2 core commit credits a day for 2 years. That's how much he's been involved. So you never know who the next major contributor could be. So I think just taking an extra, bit of time, and you'll know straight away if they're genuine or not. And I think it's a worthwhile investment.
Let me tell my experience. My first contribution was like I was actually working in a company, and they want to actually just raise the market, like their position a bit. So I was assigned to actually just handle that thing. So first I think 10 or my issue credits was just getting these kind of like low quality contributions. So yeah, I'm just telling my version. So after a while, I actually understood like how the contribution is and what it is, and then I actually went to things that actually matter, like on my day-to-day basis. Whenever I see a bug, I just report it. I raise a patch, from smaller patches to like large mega patches in like group module and all. I have contributed to like many like issues that we actually face, like in Redis group or anything like that. But the thing is, like journey should be somewhat like that. Like first time, like issues shall be like somewhat a credit, and the agencies also, like we cannot actually tell them like. There is a loophole, they they will exploit that. But the thing is, like there should be some, we shouldn't be looking for like an automated solutions, like somewhere like a manual things should be there, like not a full review or something like that, but there should be somewhat like new contributors, a 5 or 6 low credit, like low quality things are actually acceptable, or effort things are acceptable. But after that, they should do that, or their weightage should be like low or something like that. But the thing is, like we shouldn't actually look for automated solution, and even crazier, like using AI to handle this. Don't do that. So yeah, there should be some kind of a human that actually should be looking into that. So that's my.
I just got a follow-up question for you, if that's okay. Did you personally feel that the more difficult ones were more valuable to you as a, like if your agency was directing you towards the lower quality stuff to start with, did you get much out of that process compared to when you started working on harder things? Did you find that one much more fulfilling?
So it depends. Like, sorry, can you actually repeat the question? I didn't.
Yeah, so I'm like, I think myself, I got a lot out of contribution. I've learnt a lot. I can go back to before Drupal 8 came out, and I've been using PHP since late 90s, early 2000s, and I think the most that I ever learnt was through that Drupal 8 contribution period, where I was reading other people's code and having other people review my code. And so I think if I had have remained on lower quality contributions, this is the term we're using, I don't agree with that term, but I don't think I would have got the same benefit. So I'm wondering if your experience was the same. Do you think that you got more benefit out of the harder issues, even though they were harder, than you did out of the really easy?
Not always. Like my philosophy is like whatever issues I come during my day-to-day work, I actually just kind of fix that, rather than actually just go for issues. Like for contribution sprint, I actually just like go for take issues and understand it. But other things, like whenever I actually encounter an issue, I report. When I encounter an issue that is not fixed, I fix.
Yeah.
That should be the philosophy. And like some things, like maybe one line change is there, like some things that may be like very large, but we cannot like really quantify. Like I cannot actually know like which one is more satisfying, but there should be some kind of effort there, rather than like just going for like code quality contributions and things like that.
Yeah.
So code quality contributions can be actually beneficial. Like for example, if I actually see a module and it is like full of all the things, indentation issues and all, then it makes sense to actually just fix all that in one issue. But one spacing issue and all to raise an issue, it doesn't make much sense. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, I think focus areas are much more important, like defining your focus area, where you are going to focus, and like focusing on that, whether it's a easy issue or a difficult issue there. Then it's not about gaming or anything. It's about focusing on one particular thing, and you want to contribute to that.
I have a couple of questions and a suggestion. So how can we replicate what you said in the contribution, first-time contributors section at an industry level? And I think it can be done by senior technical leadership of the company. And what about new companies that do not have that senior technical leadership? How do we empower them? And my suggestion is maybe rename the novice tag to good first timer issue. That would make it very clear that it is supposed to be only used for the first timers. And for me, novice means I am a beginner and I can use as many novice issues as I can to get better. So
yeah,
maybe
this is a very good suggestion. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I think this is a very good suggestion.
+1.
Yeah. So also this problem will always be there because new people will always keep coming, right? And then training is one part of that. Definitely we have to train people, but still will not solving a problem because the system is not informing anyone who is trying to gamify it, right? So probably we can add some business logic to system itself that will probably highlight to people that, hey, you are trying to gaming the system. Like for example, if anyone who has already has like submitted 4 or 5 patch, then he is trying to probably submit one more patch for the like coding standard issue, then system can probably inform that user, so a warning that, hey, probably try considering different issues, this kind of thing. Or like there's lots of duplicate issues as well, right? So when people start creating issue, they probably don't search enough that whether the issue exists or not. So we can have a similar system like on drupal.exchange.com. We have like, when you try to create a new issue, it will show you that existing issue which is similar to that, right? So we can have a similar kind of system when you create a issue, it will probably show you the similar issues there and probably do's and don'ts as a pop-up, so that people are aware. Like kind of your system is educating yourself when you're trying to publish or create an issue or create a patch.
Does GitLab support that feature? When you start typing issue title and it finds matching existing issues?
So yeah, Lee's asking if GitLab has the kind of detect potential duplicate issues as you're filing an issue, and I believe it does. So that maybe there will be less duplicates in the future. Just one follow up. So as the Drupal Association, I'm on the engineering team at the Drupal Association. We have done some trainings with companies to kind of level up their contributions. So far, that's been reactionary to if we think a company specifically needs more help making more valuable contributions. So that is something the Drupal Association has done. It's not, right now we wouldn't be able to scale it to everyone, but yeah, company by company, we can do hour-long, 2-hour-long trainings.
And there's like a video and stuff. It's not just like all ad hoc. There's like a starter kit that they've been building and so forth. So
Right, yep.
There is the potential there to grow.
Yeah, I have a comment. So, I mean, a lot of the frustration or confusion around some of this stuff is about our assumptions about how things should be done. Do you think, I mean, I know there is information there, but do you think if we made information more explicit, like these are what our expectations are around contribution, and like this is what we feel you should do once you've done so many issues, then we think you should be moving on. Like, I think that would be really handy as a maintainer to be able to post links to documentation and go, hey, you know what, you're at this point now, here's the kind of general agreement on how things should run. Go and read this information. I mean, it might be there already, I don't know, but...
I mean, we have that for core in like oodles of, like on several different axes. The question is whether or not the contrib ecosystem agrees with or is willing to adopt both the core mentoring program's expectations and core's guidelines about what kinds of things are credited or not, how things should be scoped or not, et cetera, how contribution tasks should be done, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
I think one more thing to the point where it was mentioned, like lack of documentation or lack of resources. And I think one of the initiatives was going around to use AI assistants on Drupal issue queues as well, to basically assist contributors in understanding or improving their contribution behavior. Maybe AI agents could help there, like to figure out if someone is new and they want to trying to contribute into there. So basically it's like, first part is lack of knowledge, but it could also help in flagging the things, like you have worked on these kind of similar issues before. Like you're already done 4 to 5 coding standard issues and now it's time to move on. Like AI can flag that there.
Oh, that sounds to me like a stick. Maybe we need to make it a carrot and give people badges for their... Yes, gamification, yeah. I know Symphony has badges on their parent website. I can't remember what the name of the website is that you sign into. Yeah, so I think maybe, Yeah, but that's a whole another thing that has to be built as well. So
So one thing that someone a minute back was talking about, a problem that we have with a lot of this is, so we've talked a lot about how an individual maintainer in their project can try to find someone, when they get a contribution that's questionable, can try to nurture someone into being a better contributor when they get spam. But a lot of the difficulty is with scaling that, because especially if you're the maintainer of a high volume project, I'm one of the release managers for core, Lee also is a core committer, you're dealing with like just you have thousands upon thousands of issues coming in every day. But at least with core, we have, there's like 15 of us that are core committers. We have, like I said, huge pages of documentation. We have a bunch of like response templates that we've written that take the emotional labor out of saying, so to prevent ourselves from saying, hey jerk, you wrote ChatGPT to create this merge request. This is useless to me. You screwed up the scope. Please don't fix all the coding standards in core all at once. Here's rules. You didn't test this. This is obviously failing pipelines, blah, blah, blah. I mean, go away. You're not helping. There are these nice little polite responses that we can just copy and paste that have links to the things that tell you how to do things the right way, and so on and so forth. So those response templates are very useful. We also have an army, not an army, but like there's hundreds of people who are experienced peer reviewers for core who can also give these same responses and help point people at the documentation that exists. However, with Contrib, there isn't that same sort of like infrastructure around it. There are very large contributed projects where there are just a handful of maintainers still used on hundreds of thousands of websites, and they don't have that sort of infrastructure available, and there isn't also any sort of agreement that these practices are actually best practices. They're not used in the same way. And so, again, this is like me as a core maintainer saying, I think Contrib should use this and we should adopt these as best practices, when that might not actually be helpful or useful. And it certainly isn't written in a way, it's written as sort of like it's again, we have like almost the too much. It's not that Drupal doesn't have documentation. It's that Drupal has way, way, way too much documentation in 20 places. It's never been a problem of not having documentation. It's always been, which of the 18 kinds of times this has been documented should we use for something? And that's always the problem we have. So that's the question that I want to figure out is, has what we have done for core work enough? And B, should it apply to Contrib, and how do we get it to apply to Contrib, and what's the next step after that for that?
Yeah, very valid suggestions.
How do we make it systemic,
Yeah,
I guess?
I think so mostly Drupal documentation is text-based, and most people starting with the contribution does not read through all the documentation. So probably we can consider adding some infographics there, like do's and don'ts. That can probably educate more people. Just taking a look at the page will get some infographics there, because no one spend much time to reading the text. So it's better to have some infographics there. And making system like effective so that system can detect and inform user who is trying to do that. So probably we can think through and then agree on some logic that we can implement. I think Neil is the right person to do that.
So we're at time. So we got to wrap up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, probably I can start a thread on Slack and we'll agree on the suggestion there. Yeah, just a wrap up. So I'm saying that I can start a thread on Slack and then we can agree on the like next step that we can take. Like probably like whatever suggestion we have. Yeah. In that same channel we can probably discuss and agree on the next step to implement the contribution feedback recognition. Yeah, I think.
So everyone knows.
Yeah, everyone knows. Okay. Yeah. Thanks everyone. Thanks for your time.